Hmm? Ah!
You're listening to the Run for Your Lives podcast.
Hey everyone! Welcome to the show. I'm Daphne.
And I'm Pake.
And this is the Run for Your Lives podcast.
This episode is the Spanish post-apocalyptic horror film Bird Box Barcelona, written and directed by Alex and David Pastor and released on Netflix July 14th, 2023.
I was so excited to watch this one because it's in that universe that we like so much.
Yeah, I was really curious about what they were going to do with this one. I wasn't sure, because I know we talk about a lot of the movies we cover that are really good, solid movies, and we're like, don't mess it up with a sequel. Don't mess it up with a sequel. Why would you want to do that? And so even though this is a sequel, it takes place after the events of the first movie, with some flashbacks to kind of the same time period. But it's not really a sequel as far as we don't follow any of the same characters. It's in a completely different location. And honestly, it's a very different spin on the story. They took the universe that was given to us in Bird Box and the things that we know about the creatures and the people that are affected, and then they found a way to tell a completely unique and unexpected story.
Yes, they
So,
did.
honestly, as much as I was like, Bird Box was not a movie I really thought needed a sequel, but I will be completely honest, I thoroughly love this movie. I thought it was incredible.
I thought you might.
Yeah.
I watched it when it came out. I was excited to watch it. It wasn't that long ago that we found out that the author had written a second book called Mallory. So I thought maybe that was going to be the next movie, or that would be something that they did.
I
And
did
then,
not know about that. I'll have to check that out.
yeah, all of a sudden we get this dropped on us. I feel like it came out of nowhere.
Yeah.
And then there it is. So, yeah. There were things about this movie that reminded me of other movies, which I'll talk about when we're going through. It was cool to kind of see like this, unraveling of society through those flashbacks and how different it was there than what we saw, or not different, really.
Yeah.
But there were things about it that I liked with regard to that.
Mm-hmm.
It was a different spin. It's from a different viewpoint, and we'll talk about that because the main character is Sebastian.
Mm-hmm.
But before we do that, I'm going to do a little behind the scenes before we take off and run with all about Sebastian, because I feel like we could jump in and do that without doing anything else that we always do. So this one was filmed in Barcelona, Spain. It's a spin-off sequel to Bird Box, which was adapted from Josh Malerman's novel of the same name. As you just said, Pake, there's no direct connection between the two, other than it's happening in the same universe. There are several producers who also were part of this. And Josh Malerman was involved in this one as well as a producer. But that was really the only connection.
Yeah.
It was released on Netflix, so there's really no information available. As usual, you would think, as long as Netflix has been producing movies, we might start getting something. But no.
About, budgets and grossing and streaming numbers. Yeah, they just don't release that stuff. And
no. It's a need-to-know basis, and we don't need to know. So, Bird Box Barcelona was 112 minutes. Pake, give us a synopsis.
All right. After an entity of mysterious origin annihilates the world's population, causing those who observe it to take their lives, Sebastian begins his own unique adventure of survival in Barcelona.
Well, and where did we get this one?
It's a hybrid.
Okay.
I took the IMDb one and was like, I don't like it, and then changed it up and added some of my own stuff and adapted it.
Mm-hmm. So, before we get started, I wanted to mention that Alex and David Pastor also wrote this other Spanish post-apocalyptic film called The Last Days. It was released in 2013. We haven't covered it yet, but I think we should. It's a great movie. I loved it. It's very gritty and dark, and it doesn't paint humanity as very well, basically. Let's just say it doesn't paint humanity very well at times. But they also did this film called Carriers that was an American film. Chris Pine was in it. Very interesting movie. I don't know if you've seen it. But it's one that we could cover on here.
Interesting. Yeah.
It's not like Birdemic or any of those, but it's similar as far as like the theme, but not in the execution.
All right. Well, I mean, these guys are new to me, but after watching this movie, yeah, I'm 100% down to dive into other projects they've done.
Awesome.
Like I said, Bird Box Barcelona, I went in just not really with any expectations, being like it's kind of a loosely connected sequel, spin-off of a movie that I did enjoy, but a lot of times those don't work out that well, so we'll see.
No.
And I was very pleasantly surprised to where the fact, like, I have a note in here where I just went, holy shit, why is this so good? Why am I so invested? Like, wow. Yeah, I really, really loved this one.
So I went in the opposite. I went in with extremely high expectations and got them completely burned to the ground.
Really?
Yeah. I had a feeling before we started a conversation that we were going to have different opinions on this one. That does not happen on this podcast that often.
Not very often, no.
No. There are some things that I definitely liked, and I have some nitpicks, just there were things I didn't like at all. The second watching did help, but Pake, it's not the ritual. It didn't change my mind completely. But maybe through our conversation, I might appreciate it more, that can happen and has happened before.
Yeah, nice.
I think the conversation can help. So, without further ado, we have to get started the way we always do, with the main character.
Curious. Yeah, I'll be curious to know what you didn't like about it. I said nitpicks. You'll get to. There was one thing that I thought was weird, but I just kind of didn't care and moved on from it pretty quick. But yeah, we'll get to those things.
Yeah. I don't know. I think I have a formula for what I think in a post-apocalyptic movie is supposed to be. And I don't know. It also didn't help that the person I watched this with didn't like it either and fell asleep halfway through. I still don't know his opinion on it. I don't think it changed. Maybe he thought while we were watching it that he should close his eyes because that's what you're supposed to do, to not look at the entities. However, he missed a lot of it. So I do have to ask you, did you think the opening or the first flashback with Sebastian, did it remind you of The Happening with everyone jumping off things? And
no, not really. I didn't even think about it, but yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, it's a similar concept to that. I don't know if we talked about that when we covered the first Bird Box or whatever, but yeah, I didn't really think, because I'm just thinking more Bird Box, because we know in this world that's what happens. That's kind of...
Yeah. Not to everyone, though.
Mm-hmm.
So let's jump in and talk about Sebastian.
All right. Yeah. Good place to start. Also gonna be 85% of my notes, because again, we are following him throughout all of this. I've got some other notes about, Claire kind of takes her story in a different direction. We'll get there. Tiny couple little notes about some other people that we meet along the way. Some of the stuff about the creatures, entities, angels, demons, aliens, whatever.
No one ever really confirms what they are.
Yeah.
I think they're different things to different people.
Yeah.
I think that's what it's meant to be.
Yeah, which is fine that we don't get that, because that was one of the first things that I was worried about when this movie started. I was like, do not show the creatures. Do not add to the lore of the creatures.
Yeah.
Like, the little bit of air of mystery that we are given about them, where we just don't know, and that's what's part of what makes them scary, is there's no idea what they are. And you can't, like, please let that copy over to this. Do not add to it. Do not, and they didn't touch it, and I'm glad, because I think they could have royally really screwed this up if they tried to reveal the mysteries. And I don't want that. I don't care.
I don't want to look behind the curtain when it comes to this.
Right.
I do feel there was a point in the movie where Octavio said something that I was like, okay, that's all we need to know. That's perfect. Good. Perfect. Yeah. Nothing more or less. That is exactly what we needed.
Yeah, and you summed it up perfectly. Yeah. So, I mean, we can talk about that real quick. I mean, just, why not? Yeah, he has, like, the best explanation, because it's kind of how I saw them anyway. That's kind of what I figured what was going on. And so he says, yeah, I mean, they're these, like, ethereal beings that, like, quantum beings, as he's saying, where, like, they don't really have any form until they interact with somebody. And then through whatever process, they are able to take form depending on the person that they're affecting. Mm-hmm. They kind of tap into your, like, psychological self, your spiritual self, whatever it is, where they can take your beliefs, your fears, your grief, your, people that meant something to you, and they can manipulate and pull at you with those strings. And yeah, I was like, that's perfect. Always leave it up to the pizza delivery guy to be on top of things. Looking at you, Glenn. Of course, then we learn Octavio also has a degree in physics from Mexico.
So freaking smart, Octavio. Yeah. We didn't get enough of him. Mm-hmm. The smart people or the strong people were not allowed to survive, basically. That was something that I came away with. Yeah. It was a bit that frustrated me in some ways. I'm not really sure why, but we'll talk about it as we get there. But I did appreciate what Octavio said, because it made sense to me. Like, that's what I was seeing. It really is about the individual person versus being one thing to everyone.
Right. Which holds up to the original Bird Box. I'm thinking about, early in the movie, the lady that just walks into her burning car and sets herself on fire. It's like, she was, like, going after somebody. She's like, she saw somebody that she knew. There was a connection. I always think of, towards the end when they get to, the end of the river where they're going, and Mallory's got boy and girl with her, and they get separated in the woods, and she's hearing their voices calling to her, and they're hearing her voice calling them, but none of that's actually happening. It's this manipulation of the creatures. So they follow in suit with that, which, yeah, I enjoy that.
It's interesting, though, because I feel like it's two prongs. It's the people that it would influence to kill themselves, and then there are the seers. Mm-hmm. And they are the ones who get to survive and are manipulated themselves to do the Lord's work. Right.
And that was because I always thought that, like, those were people who were, like, already mentally unstable or something, whatever, when we talked about the first movie. And then through this movie, I was like, well, because Sebastian was one of them, is it more random? Because I didn't really see that from Sebastian. However, then we do get the answer at the end, that kind of the running theory from the military doctors and scientists there, saying that it's this alteration in your DNA base, caused by heavy trauma. Mm-hmm. And then it makes sense with Sebastian. The whole movie is him fighting this trauma of grief and guilt, dealing with his daughter, Anna. So, makes sense. Yeah. And then it kind of leaves this open-ended. I know, like we said, we'll talk about Sebastian, and then we've jumped way ahead to the other stuff. But that's fine. Because it does leave you with this question about Claire, does she have that alteration DNA? If she ever was to see the entities, would it affect her in a different way? Because of the clear, like, guilt and grief and stuff that's happened between her and her late brother, Jack, or Jojo, that
I think she could
maybe she's thinking that she could be susceptible to that because of what she's been through. Yeah.
I agree. I wondered that as well, because it is clearly based, I think, in trauma. Mm-hmm. And Claire, through the voices that we hear calling out to her, when the entity is around, it's her brother.
Yeah.
And you can tell, like, when others have different types of voices, it's not the same traumatic way, because if you look at Sophia, it's her mother.
Yeah.
And that's not trauma. That's love.
Yeah.
So.
But then Claire is literally just like, it's this idea of her brother who had his own depression and things he was battling and ended up taking his own life while she was gone. And then she's always felt like, well, maybe if I did this, maybe if I said that.
Maybe if I'd been there.
Yeah.
And she wasn't. And again, when you go through something like that, you ask yourself a million questions and you blame yourself and you beat yourself up about it. It's what Sebastian did.
Yeah, because it was all about, well, because even, I love that we're like, let's talk about it, and then it's like, no, let's just jump about the main themes, which is totally cool, because I love the conversation. But, yeah, because Sebastian, again, because when we realize, I mean, Anna that is with him and he's been talking to is all just part of this, personification of that grief. And so anything that she says to him is just something that's in his own mind that's being said to himself. And when she says, well, it was because of the candle and your singing that they found us, that's something that he's been, like, holding on to and probably beating himself up about this whole time.
Since
all
it
these,
happened.
like, 8-9 months, whatever. Yeah.
That was something that blew my mind, because I've gone back and rewatched the opening, 15 minutes, several times.
Yeah.
Trying to see if I could notice anything that would indicate that Anna wasn't real. And there's only a few things, a few instances, but honestly, they could be easily dismissed.
Yeah, I mean, where she's hiding whenever the blind people attack him. So, of course, they're not going to see anything anyway, that she's there. But then how she silently is the one that talks him into not attacking them, not hurting them. And that's also just part of the creature's manipulation of, like, this mission, this divine mission he's on. It's like, no, you have to set them free through the angels, and you can't take their life with your own hands. If they can't see, if they're not somebody who can see, then let them move on. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. The biggest one for me is whenever he goes into this bus depot with Marcial and Liliana and that group. And I was like, did he just leave Anna outside? What the fuck?
I thought that too. I'm like,
I was like, did you leave your daughter out there? What are you doing? And then when we get the big twist, I was like, honestly, it was a really cool twist that I did not see coming.
I did not see coming. And I think that's one reason why I got pissy about this movie, is that I didn't figure it out. And I like to figure things out.
Oh, no, I love whenever they can really just stump you and catch you off guard. It's because they just build it. Yeah, because you see him with the blackout goggles, which I was like, those are really cool.
Those were cool. I'm like,
that's a great idea. That's awesome. So yeah, well, I'm smoothly transitioning into Sebastian talk. Yeah. So I thought that was, like, really cool. And he's spending this time with his daughter. So we thought that she was there. Clearly, she was a figure skater before. I thought that was cool. It was like, Daphne's going to get a kick out of that.
I did enjoy that. She was doing a spin. She did a jump. She was doing it on roller skates, but okay. It's a thing. I
you
really liked
do what you can with what you got, right?
Exactly.
But yeah, and then with him talking about, I was an engineer for a construction company, and I know where I can get the generators, and he's convincing this group of survivors to take him in. And all these things, you're just like, yep, I was fully invested in, here's the survival of him and his daughter, and he's going to do what he has to do. And then I was like, why didn't he bring her in? And then I was confused. I was like, did you just leave your daughter? There's this moment, I was like, why? That's stupid. What's going on? And then so you start questioning it. While I'm trying to figure it out, that's when they hit you. Because, like, what is he doing? Why is he getting up in the middle of the night? Why is he getting keys? And then when you realize, because it was after this conversation with Lazaro, the guy who cut his own eyes out in order to not be taken by, who we later learn is Father Esteban and his team, his group.
Jesus, yes.
And he talks about, these people that, have seen the creatures, and then they convince you to open your eyes, or they force you to. And so I was like, oh yeah, we're bringing that back. I remember that being a thing in the first movie. So it's like we're sticking with this universe and the things that we've come to expect and the people that are in it. And so I didn't expect him to be a seer.
Neither did I.
Came out of complete nowhere.
And I think it blew everything up for me because I had to shift how I was thinking about Sebastian as the protagonist. Mm-hmm. And I had to shift to the antagonist, like he's bad, what he's doing is wrong.
Yeah, that's why, I don't know, I could see like maybe that would upset somebody or like, you know, maybe make you be like, that's not what this is supposed to be, but it's creative. I don't think I've seen something like that before, and that's what really invested me, because I was like, you know, as I started to suspect at that point, I was like, because it came from Liliana. Again, it reminded me of the first movie as well, but where she's like talking to her sister or girlfriend or wife or daughter. I don't know. There's somebody else that she was connected to, my love. And here is this voice. And follows off, and I was like, oh yeah, these people are like people that aren't there. Mm-hmm. And then I was like, Anna, is she even real? And then pretty quickly after that, I was like, yeah, as I suspected, she is just this figure that is being used by the creatures to give Sebastian this sense of divine purpose to set the lost people free. And that's where I was like, he thinks he's doing the right thing because he is
being
been
manipulated.
Infected. He's been taken. And so, at least in the world that we've set up in Bird Box, the original movie, the main character is the bad guy. And but then he gets a redemption arc.
He does, but I still am thinking the entire time I'm thinking of what he put the bus depot people through.
Oh, absolutely.
Like, that really, I was just like, I'm sorry, I can't like you.
Yeah.
I'm mad at you for what you're doing because he did some more things I didn't like.
Yeah. And I think he's a flawed hero. Flawed to the point where he's really the villain. Yeah. Who at the end kind of comes to his senses, realizes. But I love that they didn't humanize him to a point where, and then him and Claire fell in love, and he knew.
So grateful for that.
And I knew this movie would end with his death. It had to. And I'm glad that it did the way that it did, where he sacrificed himself to take out the priest and make sure that Claire and Sophia got to safety.
Yes. I was concerned there for a minute because of everything else we had seen. Mm-hmm. And because Bird Box and the world that it's in, there's a lot of sadness and grief. There's a lot of gut-wrenching things that happen. So I just wasn't sure what to expect, but I was mad at him. I did cut him slack after we got the flashbacks and saw what happened to him, because we get to know him. Yeah. He's a big shot guy that is involved with building windmills. Yeah. So we learn a little bit about that. We learn he has a wife and he has a daughter, and weird things are happening. One of the plants is blown up or is offline and it's not working. And he's concerned. So he goes back to the office, and that's when, he hears from his wife and he starts seeing, shit's getting real. It's not just in Poland. It's not just in Germany. It's here, right in front of me. Yeah.
It kind of, we got to see the start of the events from his perspective. So it's like the original movie. We go, okay, we do still get to see that.
I'm glad we did.
And just like the first one, shit happened fast. Yeah, like you said. And it led to some really interesting and intriguing and intense scenes. The train scene was very intense, where they're all down there. And I was like, of course the creatures move through the tunnels, and he's trying to like battle against this wave of people who are like lemmings falling over the cliff just into the tracks, that
walking right into the train. There were a couple of people that landed on the tracks, stood up, were walking right into the train. That reminds me of a Japanese movie. I think it's like 2003-ish. It's called Suicide Club. And the beginning of the movie starts off with people stepping in front of a train. These kids, actually, high school kids stepping in front of a train, and lots of weird shit happens. And I've seen that movie a couple of times, and I still don't really understand it.
Yeah.
It's just kind of weird. People just, yeah. Someday, Pake, you can watch it, and maybe you and I can have a conversation and figure it out together.
All right, yeah.
But that's what it reminded me of, like this mass suicide jump.
Yeah.
And all he's thinking about, though, because you're getting this piece of it, all he's thinking about is getting to his daughter and then getting home to his wife.
Yeah.
And you can see that he's a decent person. Like, he's focused on his family, and you can like him for that, but it doesn't excuse everything he did.
Right. And that's what makes it really interesting, is because, no, you can't excuse the things he did, but also, I mean, he was affected, whatever, by this thing, to where in this chemistry of his brain, he is talking to this apparition or whatever of his daughter who is there, saying these, that they fed off of his, Catholicism, his
guilt.
Catholic religion, to the beliefs of being like, this is the coming of God and his angels. And now you're the shepherd out to take the lost souls and open up their eyes and let them see the light. And then their souls will be free. And then you do this. If you save enough people, then me and you can be reunited in paradise. And it's all in his head being built in, that's like, this is the truth. This is what I believe. Like, it's not just that, like, he's been manipulated or, like, tricked. His body chemistry is literally telling him this is what's happening.
Yeah. And it takes this biblical focus instead of what we saw in the first one. And I kind of did appreciate that.
Yeah.
He even goes back to do confession in the church, which is completely empty.
Yeah, where he's saying, I lied to these people at the bus depot, but he's like, but I did it to save their souls, right? Like,
yeah.
He's fully convinced what he's doing is the right thing until he meets Claire and things start to crumble a little bit. But we'll get to that. Yeah.
So things are going really crazy for him, and he goes and gets Anna from school.
Yeah.
And that's when he encounters Padre Esteban.
Yeah.
And who talks biblically, talking about, are you afraid to see? I've been waiting my whole life for this, he talks about. Mm-hmm. And he's not afraid to go outside and look.
Yeah.
And he ends up being the real... I mean, you can argue who or what the antagonist is. At the end of the day, the antagonist is the entity who is now has influenced Padre Esteban. And to me, Sebastian just ended up being another pawn in that game, but I still don't forgive. You can't completely forgive what they did, even though they couldn't do anything to stop it.
I think that's what I love about the arc of Sebastian, is at the end, he knows that, like, he can't go with Claire and Sophia. Like, yeah, he helped them, but after the things that he's done, there's no full forgiveness and let's just move on. There is no, like, the only way this ends is he has to die and, like, pay penance for his sins.
Yeah.
But if he can make it, he can do it and cause some good to come out of the things by, in the way that he does that, then that's his mission. That's what it's changed to. So I really appreciate that.
Yeah, me too. I appreciate it didn't take the easy way out. It didn't end with, even for Claire, it didn't end with, and they lived happily ever after in the bunker. It's no, we're testing, we're doing these things, the military's involved. And so I look at that as, this is a very uncertain conclusion to this movie. And that's okay, because I wouldn't want it to be any different than that.
Right. It doesn't need to be perfect. This ending, again, jumping ahead a little bit, but, with this, like, failed animal testing on a cure. And it makes me wonder if they continue this as a series after what we see. I would typically say I hope not. But at least for me, maybe you don't agree, but for me, this movie was so good that there's kind of an inkling of hope. I'm like,
You want and you want a sequel.
I don't know. If there's not, I'm perfectly happy. But if there is, they're going to do it anyway, then I'm going to be like, at least there's a chance that it'll be good, because this one was so good to me. So I'm like, I'll have to see. Because they did set up some interesting things. I mean, somehow they captured one of the creatures. Don't know how you go about doing that.
I don't
at
either.
All.
Like, when you can't look. And I started to wonder about night vision goggles. Like, do those... I don't know. Is there something...
I don't think so. Because we get remember in the first movie, I can't think of the guy's name right now, but he sees them through a security camera.
And it still did that. Yes, that's true. B.D. Wong played that character.
Yes.
Yeah. I don't know how you capture one when you're not allowed or able to look.
Mm-hmm.
It doesn't make sense to me. Like, how would you go about doing that? You can't did they set a trap somewhere?
Right, like, yeah. It was kind of weird. Like, I didn't hate it, but also I could have done without that final scene completely and been okay with it. It convoluted things a little bit where I'm like, unless they're planning on taking this somewhere. But then again, I was like, well, if that's what they make a third movie about, is capturing these things and creating a cure. I'm like, no, I don't need to like I said earlier, I don't need to break down the mystery and
I don't
what these things are. I don't want to know, because the fact that we don't know, again, is what makes the horror of them so great.
That's part of the appeal of this movie.
Yeah, because I think when we covered Bird Box, I talked about the designs for what the creatures were supposed to look like. They were going to reveal at the end of the movie.
Glad they didn't.
And then they scrapped it, and I'm glad. Yeah.
Yeah. I don't need to know. Like, please keep that mystery. Keep it a secret. Keep it off the screen. Because that's part of what makes me interested in seeing anything else that they would do. Because even though there has been another novel done, there has been no discussion of a movie. So I don't know if they will do it.
Literally, when we're done recording this, I'm going on Amazon and ordering that book because I'm curious.
Mallory?
Yeah, I'm very curious. Because that with that title, it's a direct follow-up to the first movie, or the first book.
It is, but
because I read the first book. I read Bird Box by Josh Malerman, and I loved it.
I thought we talked about this, though, already, Mallory. I thought you and I talked about it, so...
I don't remember doing that. Well, maybe we did. I don't remember it, though.
I'll do the audiobook, if I can find an audiobook available. Because I want to know. I'm afraid that something's going to get spoiled if I don't. I think that's how it is now. I have to, listen to the audiobook or know what's going on, because if I don't, there's a chance that it's going to get spoiled for me anyway, so I might as well listen or do whatever to it. Yeah.
But yeah. All right. Where are we? Yeah, so we talked about the flashback. I just had a little note. I was like, I 100% knew Laura, his wife, was going to get hit by a car. All that running back and forth across the street. This ain't my first rodeo. I've seen these movies before. I just kept waiting for it. I'm like, come on.
Oh, man. All I could think of was Final Destination.
Mm-hmm.
It's like, oh my God, she's going to get hit. I know she's going to get hit. And it was such a short scene, but it didn't matter. Your mind is just like, just don't drag Anna in the street with you, please. Just don't. So we didn't get to know Laura at all, other than it seemed like they had a good relationship. They seemed like a loving family. But then after that, his whole world, or his whole mission in life, right after, was taking care of Anna and making sure she was okay. Like, that was his purpose.
Yeah. Back in the current day, modern world, whatever. He's back with the generator lie to kind of get at this new group. Clara, Rafa, Octavio, and the two dogs, which the dogs were also blindfolded. And I don't remember this ever affecting animals. That was something that was interesting. They never really showed it one way or the other in the original movie. So,
right.
But I was like, I don't think it affects animals, but they might just not want to risk it. I don't know. Why are they doing that? But clearly it does.
Well, dogs have incredible senses. So, I was actually intrigued by the inclusion of the dogs being blindfolded.
Yeah.
I was terrified for the dogs because that's how I watch movies. If animals are in it, I'm nervous because I don't want anything to happen to them.
Mm-hmm.
But they've got this. It made me, though, when he convinces Rafa, or rather Claire convinces Rafa to let Sebastian come back with them to their bunker, which seemed like the coolest place to hide out, honestly.
It was like this big clock tower, but then it had like a bomb shelter basement kind of thing. Yeah.
Like, okay, this makes sense. It's safe. Seems safe. They can't get in. The bombs didn't get in the war, so they're thinking, oh, well, we'll be safe here. And they were, until they met Sebastian. But Rafa he was smart and strong, and I just at that point wondered if Sebastian knew that he would have to take Rafa out first, just because
even though he really had
strong.
Nothing to do with Rafa's death at all. That was the entities there took care of that themselves. But
no, he took care of it, Pake. He's the one who cut the leads on the dogs.
Well, yeah, but he did things that led to that. But as far as the dogs, because again, they reach out because Claire is hearing her brother and Sophia is hearing her mom. And I thought it was interesting that Rafa is hearing the dogs in pain and whimpering and needing, and that's what actually works. It gets him to remove his blindfold.
He loves his dogs. He loves those two dogs, Demas and Jonas. He had been working with Octavio too to make him like they each had a dog and were moving forward with the dogs. And of course the leashes break because of fucking Sebastian.
Mm-hmm.
And I was mad because honestly, I wanted more of Rafa and the dog story. I really did. I know that probably no one else in the world did, but I did. I wanted more of that story. Because I thought it was interesting the way it was included, so I wanted more of it.
Yeah.
I wanted to understand more of it. But we didn't get to do that because they're going... Something interesting happens based on this little girl who I think was the beginning of Sebastian having doubts about things.
Yeah, they walk into the shelter and like he sees her from behind as she's drawing, and that's the first thing he does is Anna. Mm-hmm. Like he still has this connection, but no, it's this little German girl named Sophia who can't really communicate with anybody else there until Sebastian gets there. He's quite the global ambassador for the creatures. Mm-hmm. Because of his job that he had, he's traveling all over Europe, so he can speak English, he can speak German. So finally somebody that Sophia can speak to. And then also he speaks English with Claire a lot because she's British. Mm-hmm. So she speaks English, which was the one hang up that I had. I was just like, Claire speaks English so much in this movie, like to all this room of Spanish speakers, and she's just like speaking in English and then they're responding in Spanish. I was like, I wanted to ask, like, could they not get a Spanish speaking actress to play that role? But she did speak Spanish from time to time. So I was like, why is she choosing to speak English so often? It's kind of weird.
Well, we never really learned why she's there.
Yeah.
Like, why is she in Spain? That is not given to us.
Mm-hmm.
But I do love Georgina Campbell. So, Georgina Campbell plays Claire. Mm-hmm. Did you recognize her from anywhere else?
Did not.
You should have. A movie we haven't covered yet, but we've talked about covering. She was the lead, aka Tess, in Barbarian.
Okay, yes, yeah, mm-hmm. All right.
Yeah, she has won a BAFTA. She played Amy in Hang the DJ, which is one of my favorite episodes of Black Mirror.
Yes. It's a good one.
So, the cool thing that I found out about her is she's got another movie coming out whenever called Cold Storage, and it's got Liam Neeson, Joe Keery, and Sosie Bacon in it, and it does, Pake, fit within our world of movies.
Ooh, perfect.
So, yeah. So it's very cool.
Nice.
It was cool that they got her.
I didn't recognize her.
Yeah. I'm like, when I watched the movie the first time, which was right after it came out, I watch movies with my phone, like, nearby, so I can check IMDb. I want to know, what has she been in, or what has he been in? Where have I seen this? Yeah. And yeah, she's very, very cool. But she's a legit, like, BAFTA TV award-winning actress. Like, she's
nice.
Great.
Add a little, like, star power to this movie, which I'm sure a lot of these actors are, like, Spanish actors that, like, I wouldn't know, but probably people in Spain would recognize pretty well as well.
Yeah, Mario Casas, who plays Sebastian, he's been in a number of productions from this company, Nostromo, which did Bird Box Barcelona. And he's won film acting awards in Spain, so he's legit. Like, he's someone that was a big name for them to get for this film.
Yeah. And again, we don't get numbers and anything from Netflix, so I don't know how well this movie is really being perceived widely. But if it's doing well, if it does well, we know he can speak English. He has plenty of those moments in this movie. I could see him making a jump to some, like, American productions and stuff. Eventually, once those production companies get their shit together and take care of the SAG-AFTRA situation. Stop being selfish.
I saw, and this is a very brief tangent, and it's not really a tangent, it's more of a comment. I saw basically an image of residuals for a TV show that a writer received. Mm-hmm. And it was like $3.
Yeah, I saw that. It might be the same one. It was from my buddy, who I've actually had a conversation with, Mr. Steve S.S. Wilson of Tremors fame.
It would be the same.
Yes, I saw his residuals. Yeah, it's sad that he's making like $3 off of this show that he put so much time into.
Yeah.
Yeah.
As TV has evolved, it's time to have the pieces that are tied to the income adjusted to evolve with it, because it's not okay for writers and actors to not get rewarded or residuals or proper residuals for the work that they did. I mean, pay them what they are worth.
It's part of the contracts for a reason. I know it's a weird tangent to go on this episode, but quickly, yeah, because, I love Orange is the New Black, and now there's been a lot of stuff with, like, the cast of that show being like, we signed on and did that show because of the residual part of the contract. Many of them were still, like, working at coffee shops and working second jobs while filming that show through its entirety, because the original contract with these studios was like, you'll get paid a little bit, but where you're really going to make the money is if it's a big hit. You'll get residuals for the rest of your life.
And it was a big hit.
Yeah.
So the residuals coming in is a nice little check. Should be a nice little check for that. Anyway, let's get back on track and talk some more Sebastian.
Yeah. Where were we? So this other group that he's met. So again, he can speak German. So he's speaking with Sophia. We get Sophia's story of her and her mother kind of escaping the craziness going on and coming up with this plan to get to this castle, which Roberto, one of the guys there, realizes is Montjuic. Mm-hmm. Sebastian can convince the group, or at least Claire, that they should go. And honestly, it's really not a bad idea, except the fact that Sebastian has very sinister ulterior motives.
Sinister is a great description. Mm-hmm. And I couldn't like him. Like, I tried to like him the rest of the movie, and I just couldn't. Even when they showed us what happened, I still was kind of like, I don't...
Yeah. Because he comes up with this plan, because he drops the generator thing, because he realizes it's not going to work on this group. And it's Anna, which is actually the creatures in his head, telling him that Sophia is the key to getting the whole group outside, so you can get, which is really fucked up.
It's funny because Anna tells him that she's the key before she even reveals anything about Montweek,
Mm-hmm.
which I found interesting. It's like, oh, okay.
Yeah. But yeah, so we see, this, like, thing with Anna, because Anna is this, like, not really voice of reason, because, she's, we have to be back together, you have to do this, you have to set them free. But he's starting to second guess things a little bit. And I wondered at first, he's struggling a bit with what he feels he's compelled to do, because Anna does kind of transform. She looks the same most of the time, but they kind of film her in shadows more often, or kind of in this, where she becomes this dark figure, ominous, really. So you see, like, he's seeing things in a different light, and I was like, oh, he's starting to question, and then he goes and frays the dog leashes, and I'm like, or not.
Yeah.
But yeah, he does start questioning things a little later on. Claire is talking to him about how the creatures burrow into your head and manipulate you with your loved ones and things like that, while Anna is standing right behind her saying things like, oh, she's trying to make you question your faith and don't listen to her. And it's real sketchy. It's like, sounds like somebody who's brainwashing me with things that they would say, Yeah. And then, of course, when they go up to search this apartment for meds and antibiotics and stuff for Roberto, which from the dog bite, which again, animals can be affected, but to what extent we don't know.
No.
We see the dog's eyes change and it bites Roberto, but then, like, that's all we see. We do see later the seagulls, like, flinging themselves through windows. So
yeah, I thought that was kind of interesting. Pake, the seagulls don't do that around here.
No, good.
No.
Neither do ours. But the ones that we have around here really love Cheetos Puffs. That's theirs.
Really? Around here, they like McDonald's French fries. I guess it must be a regional thing.
Right. But while they're up in this apartment, Sebastian, gets Octavio killed. But then he doesn't see his light, as he says. He doesn't see his soul set free. And it's like reality starting to come through the cracks a little bit. He's questioning this divine mission. And then Anna is there, and she's like, it becomes less of a do it for me, and like this, like, companion. And now she's commanding him, remove Claire's blindfold. But he doesn't. This battle in his mind has started, and I loved the line. I loved the quote when Anna appears to him on the steps behind him, and she's starting to kind of glitch out and fade, and kind of more this ghostly figure. And he says, "Am I the shepherd, Anna, or am I the wolf?" And I loved it.
that was a great quote.
Mm-hmm.
Am I the shepherd or am I the wolf? Because he is starting to doubt things.
Yeah,
and he even at one point gives the necklace that had belonged to Anna to Sophia.
Yeah.
And you can tell he sees a lot of his daughter in Sophia, and that is really pushing him to be conflicted. Because at one point we actually get to see exactly what happened to Anna.
Yeah.
And why he's so conflicted and why this is so difficult, and he's so full of grief and hatred of himself for not protecting her.
Yeah. And Sophia plays a big role because he couldn't save his daughter, but he almost has a second chance here.
Mm-hmm. And he starts to focus not on Claire as much, but mostly on Sophia. Like, he doesn't want anything to happen to Sophia because, again, despite the fact that he lost his daughter and his wife, and he's been taken over by this entity, and he lives in this world of self-hatred and guilt, there's that little piece of him that's still left in there. Mm-hmm. And I feel like he starts to reemerge, like he starts to come back to life, and the entity doesn't have as big control over him because of Sophia. Like, Sophia was the key to everything.
Yeah.
Not just in the way that Anna thought.
Right. I like that. That's good.
Yeah. I think she was the key to bringing him back to the living as far as focusing on changing his purpose.
Yeah.
Because I do think he did struggle with having to do what he was doing with the lying and what the entity was doing to him. Because I do think there's a piece of him that felt it wasn't quite right.
Yeah.
And he wasn't okay with it. But he still believed. And so he focused on it and continued to do it anyway. But then Sophia changed everything.
Yeah.
Because this was a child. This was a girl similar to age to his daughter. And he could not get past it.
Yeah. And we see, he that turn where he kind of has to make that decision. I like the reveal because we kind of learned through Claire that it's like he could see through his goggles the whole time, which I didn't really realize that was the case because I was questioning. I was like, he wears his goggles every time he goes out with people. It's like for appearances, but they can't see him. So like, what's the point? But he's good at, that, where he can kind of pretend and I like, he'd gotten used to like, and very good at pretending, looking in a different direction, like he doesn't actually know what to focus on.
Yeah.
But he's got them to where he can see through them the whole time. Because the group is found by this one of the priest's men. And he's able to get Claire and Sophia to safety by just running with them and saying, turn here. Which, of course, then Claire questions. And when they do get into safety, she takes his goggles and looks through them and is like, you could see the whole time. And that's where she's putting these pieces together and realizes, you killed these people. You did this.
And he left Roberto
Isabel
and Isabel. Roberto fell, and Isabel stayed with Roberto.
Yeah, they get left behind, so they go out. We don't really see how it all ends, but we know how it all ends. And honestly, it's beautifully tragic.
It is, because they take their blindfolds off and look at each other and connect with each other. Mm-hmm. And based on not flashbacks, but the voices that they hear, that they had some issues in their marriage. Mm-hmm. And things were not perfect, and it seemed like they were going to go through a divorce. And yet this phenomenon, or this post-apocalyptic world, it brought them back together. And she wouldn't leave him. Because, Sebastian said, make a line, we gotta go. But he had to know they were going too fast. But the problem is, they had to go fast. Because the guy was on a bike, and it was not going to be good.
So once Claire realizes kind of what's going on there, she takes Sophia to leave Sebastian behind. But he does catch up with him. And he gets Sophia and is going to take off her blindfold. But those cracks have formed enough, this image of Anna, again, to use that word, sinister, maybe insidious. But it's the manipulation that's going on with this apparition of Anna is more apparent. This blood kind of running down her face and this thing, and he's starting to see kind of the monster past the facade of his daughter. And then when Sophia asks, are you talking to Anna? Is that Anna? And that he can't go through with it. That's that breaking point.
Yeah, he's built this connection to Sophia, and when she calls him out on that, I feel like that was like the final step to bring him back. And it was hard for him, though, because he relied on being able to see his daughter. Like, his entire life had just been about converting people into, killing themselves and doing what they could, because he would get one step closer to being reunited with his family. Mm-hmm. And that's not at all what was going on. Although Anna at one point says to him, 2 more, do these 2 more and we can be together. Mm-hmm. It's like, don't trust the entity.
No, don't at that point. So he makes this kind of new mission. which after we see the flashbacks of Anna and her death and the things surrounding that, which, yeah, it was really sad. And you see this is the moment that things really broke in his head. You know, he said, you know, he was broken. And yeah, we see that, you know, between the priest and him. That's how he winds up the way he does. But yeah, so he takes this new mission to help Claire and Sophia get to the castle, this goal that they had. And the fact that he can see outside is how he's going to help them get there. He's going to make good of the situation that he is in and who he is. Of course, Claire is not trusting of him, and he even says, I wouldn't be. But finally, you know, she does consider it and decides to go along with it. And then right when you're like, okay, we have a plan, and here comes the priest.
Esteban. Oh, man.
He's here.
The reason that this whole thing is happening, I mean, this is because Esteban saw the candle and realized where they were, and he takes Anna and Sebastian to the roof, makes them see, and Anna basically walks off the roof.
Yeah.
And this is the guilt that Sebastian's been living with the entire time.
Yeah. So he has to make it right. He's got this new little girl and somebody who's with her that can protect her. This is my new goal. And so that's the time, of course, the priest comes back into the picture and he's dealing with this again. I like that he still wears his goggles when one of the priest's group finds them kind of trying to climb down off the roof. Which, you know, again, you're wondering, at this point, why are you even wearing them? But then he's trying to play it off like they won't, you know, because we see when this lady knows what he is, she's like deeply offended that he rejected the quote unquote angels, that, you know, you've been given this gift and this divine mission and you are rejecting God and you're rejecting this, to where she tries to take his eyes herself. You know, you're not deserving of this ability, this gift to see. Luckily he just pushes her off the edge to her death. Like he gets out of that situation. And they get down to the street, other guys are coming on them, and I was like, man, this escape car that some guy killed himself in probably smells awful, but yeah, take what you can get, right?
Yep. Do what you can with what you have. Yeah,
which today I learned you drive on the right side of the road in Spain. It's not like a lot of other, like, European, like the UK and stuff over there. It is right side.
Yep.
And then I gotta give it to him. It was a really smart move. Kind of skidding in the way that he did, blocking the entrance with the car and then blowing it up, which was really cool.
It bought them a little time.
Yeah. Bought them, enough, all the time they needed. To where they kind of, Claire and Sophia climb up, and we'll talk about that later. Because as far as to wrap up Sebastian's story, we've talked about it a little bit, but yeah, he has that final face-off with the priest and Anna in a way, which was interesting. But yeah, he finally acknowledges this, like, reality here. I love that he tells the priest, like, it is not God or the angels or anything that you're following. You are an instrument of these creatures, of these monsters, and that's all you are. And it gets super intense, where he acknowledges to Anna, you're not real, and goes to, like, stab her to kind of, like, get rid of this apparition. And the priest had somehow, like, climbed over the car.
Yeah, I don't know how that happened.
Not sure about how that worked. 1+1 there, but we get there.
He teleported.
Over. Yeah. But instead of stabbing, through Anna, he stabs the priest.
That nice, spike.
Quite this struggle here that, like we mentioned, you know, this struggle ends, it has to end with Sebastian sacrificing himself to end the terror that this priest is creating. And yeah, if he has to take himself out to do that, it's kind of the priest is saying, oh, you're not going to survive this. And he almost looks as he's like, that's kind of the whole plan. That's fine.
Yeah. I think he's okay. I think Sebastian has resigned himself to knowing that his fate was going to be his life coming to an end.
Mm-hmm.
As long as he did what he needed to do to keep the priest away from Claire and Sophia.
Yeah.
He was buying them time.
He did his part. Because he looks up as he's dying after this is over and sees the gondolas, the cable cars moving. And this kind of this piece of, like, mission accomplished. I've done what I needed to do.
Yeah. That bought some brownie points back with me because I really felt like if he lived and they went off into the sunset, I was going to be disappointed.
Right.
Because I've seen a few Spanish apocalyptic movies, and they don't always end in this happy, happy, joy situation. It's usually a complicated story. And so to see it end like this for him, I was okay with it. I was glad, actually, because I thought it was the only thing that could happen for him. Yeah. Because some people are not redeemable, and even though he can't be held responsible really for his actions because he was infected, I think still, because I just don't think you can find him blameless either.
Right.
So it was what needed to happen, so I'm okay with it. Mm-hmm. And I was good with it.
Yeah, it ends the way I think it should. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
For him, at least.
Yeah.
But yeah, so that is all of my Sebastian notes, which is, again, most of it, but I do have other stuff. You say Claire, another kind of main character we get in with. I don't have a lot about her, but I've got some thoughts, especially that ending. Again, just like her hang up there, as we talked about, it was her late brother that was really messing with her, which again made me question, like, how susceptible is she to being a seer with her DNA and things like that? Like, with the trauma she's been through with her brother. I don't know. I don't know if we'll ever know, and that's okay.
You know what? I just thought of something on how they got a seer. What is to stop them from taking someone that sought refuge there and forcing them to open their eyes until they got someone?
Mm-hmm.
I mean, that's dark.
It's very dark, but yeah.
But really, I mean, given everything we've ever seen with government and the military in situations like this, what is to stop them?
Yeah.
Like, if they realized it was trauma-based, all they had to do was go through any interviews they had with any of the survivors that came in and test the theory.
Mm-hmm.
And I could be wrong.
Yeah. Still don't know how they get a creature that way, but...
Well, they turn them into one and then they just lock them down after.
Mm-hmm.
I mean...
Yeah. Yeah, because there was a guy that was in there. All he wanted was to see it again.
Yeah.
But yeah, with Claire, after the realization of who and what Sebastian was, the fact that she goes straight to the roof outside with Sophia, I was like, I don't know if that was the best idea. I don't know where you're going to go, but I don't know if that was the move.
Yeah. I don't know about that either.
But yeah, a big through line with Claire, I noticed, of course, when we hear Sophia's story, when Sebastian's translating it, and it was this, I let go of my mother's hand, and so, like, Sophia is feeling guilty because she let go of her mom's hand. So there's, like, this whole thing is, like, don't let go. And then when they're out, when the dogs break free and Rafa dies, in that moment, Claire is beating herself up because I let go of Sophia's hand. I promised her I never would, and I did. So then we get that all full circle here where they're climbing up to the top of this tower, and Sophia falls through the stairs, and Claire is not letting go of her.
No,
at that point, definitely
pulls
not.
her up. I was a little scared at that point, but they pulled her. Claire does pull her up, but she does let go of her hand again when they're upstairs, and I think that just goes to show that you can have the best of intentions, but the situation around you, you can't control everything.
Right. And then Claire makes the decision because it's too dangerous and it's too unpredictable that she takes off her blindfold so she can get Sophia to the top of the tower, get those gondolas moving, and they're not budging. So maybe, they go to the bell to see if they can signal whoever's at the castle, which works. She gets their attention, but she also gets the attention of something else.
Yes. The entity, which brings the seagulls.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And so while this major intense battle is happening between Sebastian and the priest, Claire is battling this entity up there with her, trying to push her brother's voice out of her head and keeping Sophia safe, and able to time perfectly the moment to jump into the gondola as it's open and swinging by, with seagulls just flying through the windows the whole time around her. Lots of intensity.
One of the smart things I thought was the folks at the castle must have painted the windows or put things on the windows to block them up, and I thought that was very cool that they did that.
Yeah, you don't want to get somebody in one of them and then have them, like, infected on the way up.
No. Nope. Definitely not.
But yeah, so they make it to the castle. Yeah, it's like a military-run shelter that's set up there for survivors, and maybe some certain testing and things. We don't know the full extent. Even if it felt a little obvious it was going to happen, I still was okay with it, that Sophia's mother was alive and there, and they got reunited.
I didn't think it was going to happen, because these movies, you just don't see that, so I was a little surprised. Like,
it got
oh my
me
gosh.
in the feels quite a bit, I'll be honest. It was good to see that reunion, and then, yeah, the seers, as the military officer there calls them, the doctor, yeah, we talked about this genetic alteration with trauma, and the military is trying to see if they can build a road from this genetic alteration to a cure or a vaccine for the effects of the creatures. And it's like, well, how do we plan on testing that? Boom. Closing scene. Which, again, I don't know, I could have done without that last scene, maybe, but still, I was like, wondering, like, does it leave it up for, like, a continuation of these movies? Because, again, like, typically I'd say, no, don't, just leave it. And if they do leave it, I'm happy with that. But also, I did enjoy this movie way more than I thought I would, so I was like, I mean, if they can strike gold again with it, maybe. But where do you go with the story after this? Because I don't want a continuation.
Know.
Again,
no.
Okay, tell a different, unique story in this world. That's what made this movie work for me.
Yeah.
Is because it wasn't trying to build on what we had. It was like, what if we tell you something completely unique and different?
What if we flip it on its head? Everything you thought you knew, yes, you knew it, but this is a flip side of it. By making Sebastian the antagonist and not the protagonist, even though you think that's what he's going to be. Because you see this wonderful moment at the beginning of him with Anna and they're roller skating, and you think, oh, this is, it's great he's with his daughter, and then it all gets flipped on its head, and then you're just like, okay, I have no idea what's going on. I'm irritated. At least that's how I was. And then yeah, you have to put the pieces together.
Yeah, the shock I was in watching that scene when he starts getting the bus running and locking himself in, just like, because I was making myself some like lunch while watching that part, and like literally I just put everything down and was just staring like slack-jawed at the screen, like what the fuck is happening? Like, so it was great.
Yeah. Another thing I liked is that I haven't seen in a movie before, and I thought was very clever, is when Sebastian used the GPS on his phone to go to the hospital.
Yeah.
I'm like, that's very clever.
Yeah.
I'm not sure the cell towers would be working, but I think it's great that you tried something different, because I haven't seen that before.
Yeah.
And
I mean, we get the group in the original movie using the GPS on in the car to find their way to the grocery store.
Yeah.
But
this was
just to have it like the little AirPods in, and just have it being like in 15, because there's like walking directions on there. He's like in 15 feet, turn left. Yeah, it's fun.
Yeah, I like that. I thought, okay, that's a great way to tie it back to the first movie, but make it a little bit different. So I thought it was clever.
So that's, again, all I have on Claire. I do have a couple of extra notes. I don't know, do you have any more? Claire or other main characters?
No. I think I'm good.
Yeah, just little things. Marcial and Liliana, this first group in the bus depot. I liked their setup. Unfortunately, it didn't last. But But yeah, I mean, it seemed like they had a great setup there, this bus depot, and had all these people filling important roles. You know, we have the doctor, we have these people, the carpenter and things that can fix things, an engineer. He's a cook, even if he's a bad one. You don't happen to cook, you know?
Yeah.
Because I think he was a cook in prison or something like
yeah, I thought
that's
that
where
was
he learned
funny.
to cook.
And I thought that was going to be our setup.
Yeah.
Like, I thought that was going to be the setup. I'm like, okay.
Which again was a great twist, as you introduce these people. And you're like, oh, here's the group of survivors he goes with. Nope, we're just going to kill all of them and start fresh in a whole different direction. Except for Lazaro.
Poor Lazaro.
Because, again,
on his own again.
He talks about the seers and how, he cut his own eyes out to keep them from dragging him outside.
Yeah.
And so it's just, what a gut punch for him to tell this story and then immediately have Sebastian kill everybody that he's there with and leave him all alone again at the end.
I know. I just felt bad. I mean, he was then going off by himself. Mm-hmm. And I just felt for him because you don't know who he was going to end up running into at that point. And he'd had a little family with this little group, and he'd already lost his family.
Yeah.
One thing, too, the guy that was banging his head, he was tied up and he had been turned by Esteban, I think. He was banging his head, and he broke the glass. And he ended up dead. But he kept saying they traveled millions of light years to get here. And Sebastian was, like, contradicting him and saying, oh, no, they're angels. Which just led me back to they're different things to different people.
Yeah, just however they can get to certain people.
Yeah. And I think it's, it just added to the lore a little bit, which I was okay with. Like, yeah. I like more added to it without showing it.
Yeah. And then if I have any other random notes about creature stuff, I think I've talked about them. The one joke I had in my notes, I only had one, was that, Liliana's death. She sees someone from her past and it leads her to go retire her face.
I don't know about that. That was an interesting way to die, really.
Yeah.
I mean, and I started to look for different connections because there was the one guy that had the lighter that I thought, okay, and he kills himself by lighting himself on fire. Okay.
Yeah.
But there was really no other connection there. So there was nothing that you could tie to it, but I think I appreciate this movie more now that we've talked about it.
I hoped you would.
Do I love it like you do? No. But
okay.
I do appreciate it more because the things that I liked, I really liked. And you pointed out some things that made me change my mind a little bit.
But yeah, that's everything I've got.
That's it, Pake. I think we did it.
We did it. We talked about it. Blindfolds off. We've seen it all.
Yes, but my eyes are still closed.
All right.
Just in case.
Oh, man. And almost as if on cue. Almost as if by a push of a button.
The feedback phone is ringing.
Yes, so I gotta go see what that's about. All right, we actually have a good bit of feedback this week. I'm so excited. I love when you guys come through with a lot of feedback. It's always so much fun.
Yeah, and we always remind you that if you miss the opportunity to get the feedback in for a particular movie on the night that we actually record the episode, never fear, because you can send it in after. And we're always excited to hear what you guys think about a movie that we're covering.
Yeah, because this one here, we're actually going back a couple of episodes. We have a couple of different things. We even have one more entry into the top 5 things episode that we did. So I'll start off with that one, and we'll hear from our friend Tony.
Yay!
Who says, I wasn't quick enough to get my feedback in, but did listen, and I was happy someone wrote in about Salem's Lot. My mom let me watch this when I was 8 years old, and I slept with a light on for years. It was the first time I ever saw a kid die in a movie. Freaked me out. The Blob and the Voodoo Doll from Trilogy of Terror was also on my list, but I wanted to mention a movie I saw in the 70s. Don't know the name, but this really scared me. It was on Friday Terror Theater. They showed scary movies every Friday night. Anyway, it was about a group of people get invited for a weekend in the mountains. Then one by one, they are attacked by a Yeti. The last woman left alive finds out it wasn't a Yeti, but a man in a costume, and his family were cannibals, and their guests were the main course. LOL. It sounds stupid, but I swear it was real. Can't find it anywhere, but I swear it was real. Yeah, I have never heard of such a thing, Tony, but sounds interesting. I believe you. It's totally real. Mm-hmm. For sure. Uh-huh. No, I don't know. It probably is. Maybe Daphne will do some Googling and figure it out. I don't know.
If I figure out what it is, Tony, I'll let you know. I'll let all the listeners know what that masterpiece is, because it sounds like something that's perfectly 70s. Horror movies in the 70s were just a bit of a trip. Anyway, the effects and the casting and the dialogue, yeah, some of them were a bit of a challenge to get through. So I guess we'll see if I can figure out what it is. So we did get a little bit of feedback about the movie 28 Days Later, which was last week's episode. Randy says, started listening. It's making me think I should do a rewatch soon.
Yeah, always a good time.
I always recommend. Yeah, it's always a good one.
And then this one comes from Harrison. Says, this is one of the more interesting zombie movies out there. It pushes the "can there really be anything worse than people" theme pretty far. Plus, it has the man who helped revive Doctor Who. Yeah, but be careful throwing that Z word around. I know somebody who's going to have an aneurysm and hunt you down, so be careful.
I know. I think I may have told Harrison that when I saw him a couple weeks ago. Mm-hmm. We're not going to debate that on this podcast.
Never.
We're just not going to talk about it. So the last one comes from Karen, who says, great pod, love this movie. Thanks, Karen.
Nice. It is a classic for sure. 28 Days Later. And we do have one more feedback piece for 28 Days as well. A rare occurrence we haven't had in a while, a voicemail.
I know. It's been so long. I don't know if I remember how to even make this work anymore. But let's go ahead and try it and hear what Wendy had to say about 28 Days Later.
Hey, Daphne and Pake, it's Wendy. Wanted to send you a voicemail about 28 Days Later. One of my absolute favorite movies ever. I think it's a zombie movie. I think a zombie movie is a zombie movie if it feels like a zombie movie, and you think it's a zombie movie, then it's a zombie movie to you. But I digress. I started watching this by myself. I guess we had gotten it on DVD or something like that, and I started watching it by myself late at night. My husband had already gone to bed, and I think I only got, 15 minutes into it, and I had to turn it off and wait until we could watch it together the next night. Creeped me out so bad. I guess that's what I'm looking for. I think the look of it was so different than what we had had before, and they did it on a budget, shoestring budget, which is so amazing. I think the acting, they just really either lucked out or they were incredibly smart in getting these unknown actors that were so really incredibly good. With the main cast, I thought they were excellent. And that movie still, just when I watch it, it's still really scary. You can feel what it would be like to be in that situation and basically be running for your life. See what I did there? I'm loving all your summer movies. Can't wait to see what you got next. Keep it up. You guys are just knocking them out of the park. Thanks.
Thanks, Wendy.
Awesome. Thank you. That was awesome. Great voicemail. Unfortunately, it did it did end with, I know Ben is dead now, but you know what? That's fine. Yeah. Voicemail, that's good. We can handle that.
Of course. That was so good, Wendy. Thank you so much. I'm glad you're enjoying everything that we're doing. We're trying to be not strategic, but we're just picking what feels good, what feels right to do for movies. So I'm glad that you enjoy it.
Yeah, thank you.
But we did get some feedback on Bird Box Barcelona. I'm really excited about this because I wasn't sure if people had a chance to watch it, so it's cool that we did get feedback from a few folks. From Brenda, she says, "Is it too late? I had seen the trailer. I'd seen the trailer a couple months ago and thought it was going to just be another view of people trying to survive the creatures, but in a different country. I was totally unprepared for what the movie actually was. Within half an hour, my main reaction was, WTF. I liked the movie. Now I've got to go rewatch the first movie."
Nice.
Thanks, Brenda.
Yeah, thanks. And the next one comes from Gemma. Says, "I loved it. It was really my type of film. I enjoyed it. Was from a different perspective. Spoiler, it's okay. Hopefully people listening to this have seen the movie. If not, spoilers, that's their fault. Yes, a different perspective, a seer. And I really wasn't positive he would do the right thing in the end. I love the train station sequence. So creepy. The need for safety and survival reminded me of the early days of The Walking Dead. The bus sequence at the beginning was also like WTF. I watched it in Spanish with English subtitles because dubbing gets on my nerves, and one of the main characters spoke English anyway. The Seers seemed more lethal than the first movie. I hope they do a third movie to see if they can solve this thing."
Ooh, Gemma, that's a cool take.
Possibly, if it can be done right. But yeah, I really like your take. And yes, the subtitles, subs, not dubs, ever.
Right. Friends, don't let friends watch dub movies.
Never.
So Mark says, "I thought it was excellent and really hope they do a follow-up movie showing other major cities."
Yeah.
I hope that if they do it and they go to another major city, that it's another twist.
Yeah. Yeah, that's what I said. I like this one when we recorded this episode earlier, that, yeah, I like that. Not only was it just like the same universe, same story in a different place, but then there was a big kind of twist on it and they told a different story. Is there another different story that they can tell? I don't know, but if they can find a way to do it, I would like to see what they do if they can come up with something.
Yeah, me too.
All right. And lastly, we have one from Maria. Says, "I was pleasantly surprised with it. The dubbing was meh, but I also used closed captions anyway, so I probably should have just done subtitles." Yes. Again, I'm going to break into this and say, always watching subtitles. Don't let the English dubbing ruin things for you because it's never going to be as good. Just watch this with the subtitles. Watch it the way it's meant to be done. We will preach that forever.
And sometimes the story gets twisted or wrong with the English dubbing.
Yeah. Anyway, she goes on to say, "It was a completely different movie and story, and I don't think you would have watched the original. I don't think you would have had to watch the original to understand it."
I think I agree with that.
Mm-hmm.
But I think you should watch both.
Yes.
Because
the first
cool.
one is so good.
It is. And we've already covered it. This is the second one. And if they do a sequel, we'll probably cover that too.
Yeah.
Thanks for all the great feedback, guys. We definitely appreciate you spoiling us with your messages about each of the movies that we've been covering.
It was awesome. Keep it up.
If you'd like to submit feedback in the future, you can find us on Facebook and Instagram at Run For Your Lives Podcast. You can find us on X, Twitter, X-Twitter, whatever it's calling itself these days, at RFYL Podcast. You can email us, runforyourlivespodcast@gmail.com. And if you're enjoying the show, tell your friends. We are available on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Stitcher, pretty much all other podcast players, including YouTube. Go to runforyourlivespodcast.com for all the links you'll ever need. And give us a review on Apple Podcasts. That's the best way to share the love and get us out there even more. We really appreciate it.
Yes, we do. Absolutely. And speaking of sharing the love, of course, I got to give some shout outs to things going on in the podcast universe around us. My other podcast, Strange Indeed, still on hiatus right now. We were thinking about coming back and doing something, but now, time frame wise, if we started what we were thinking about, we wouldn't be able to finish it in time for the next Flanagan thing that's coming in October. So we might extend the hiatus. We might do a little one-off, two-off thing here or there. I don't know. Stay tuned. Me and Rima are talking about what we're going to do. We'll figure it out. But even if we don't come back until October, just know that it will be back with the next limited series from Mike Flanagan, The Fall of the House of Usher. And we are so excited to dive into that one with you. So if we do have to wait till that long, it will be well worth it because Flanagan, always Flanagan. It's great. But yeah, just stay tuned to Strange Indeed on all of the socials and on podcastica.com and, see if we decide to do something in the meantime. We will let you know. And I'll let you know here as well. But lots of other great Podcastica stuff going on. Welcome to the White Lotus. Again, Jason, Jenny, and Randy going through the White Lotus seasons 1 and 2, recapping kind of those, going back over them, rewatching, maybe podcasting on them as if it's the first time they've watched it, even though I think they've all seen it before. But yeah, going back through the White Lotus. So if you're a fan of that show, definitely check out Welcome to the White Lotus. And then the Revisited podcast with Ben and Kristen. Just a few episodes left before they finish Lost. And then they get to move on to something new. And I've teased it a couple times before in the past. I can finally announce what they're covering for sure. They will be heading over to Richmond to hang out with just a goofy American football coach, hanging out with his new English football club. That's right, they are rewatching Ted Lasso, which is just recently ended earlier this year, just a couple months ago. And it didn't take long for Ben and Kristen to go, okay, well, now we have to go back and rewatch it from the beginning and talk about every episode. So, yeah, I'm excited for that. I might try to guest host on some of them if I can. If Ben, maybe I'll have to fill in for Ben now that he's dead after the feedback section of this episode. So we'll see. Kristen, let me know. But yeah, so if you're a big fan of Ted Lasso, like I am, and I know Daphne is, and so many other people, because it's such a great show, I'm still reliving my Ted Lasso. I'm letting their story continue a little bit. Random plug. I don't really care for like too many sports video games, but I did buy FIFA 23 because AFC Richmond is in the game and I've been playing as them on FIFA and that's been really fun. So if you didn't know you could do that, do that. It's great. And I was on sale for like $18. It might not be anymore, but keep an eye on it because if sales happen, it's fun. It's fun to play as the AFC Richmond, as the Greyhounds. It's been great.
I wondered if you were going to mention that because if you didn't, I was going to.
Oh yeah. But anyway, also good Podcastica stuff. Good Omens, the Podcastica TV podcast industry's crossover, has continued to go on through Good Omens Season 2, and they just released Episode 4 of Season 2 of Good Omens, which, man, I love Good Omens so much. These ineffable characters. I mean, David Tennant and Michael Sheen together are just absolute magic gold. It's so British, and it's so charming, and it's so funny.
I feel like I should be watching this show.
You really should. What is wrong with you? Why
because
are you not?
I'm watching another show that you encouraged me to watch, and it's going to be a long time before I'm done with it. Because there's 7 seasons.
Yeah. Yes. But there's always time for some Good Omens. And of course, with these ineffable figures on this show, who better to cover it than the ineffable fiancés, John and Derek? They have been doing an incredible job covering this show. I just love listening to them talk about it as an Englishman and an Irishman themselves. It's so great to hear them talk about
we
all of the great
always
stuff.
say this, but we need to get Derek back on here.
Yes, for sure. And then, other good stuff. Wilhelm, talk about Ben and Kristen. They did the Revisited. Also, they've been doing the movie swap episodes over on Wilhelm. I've talked a lot about those recently in the past couple weeks. Those have been really cool. So if you want to check out this week's episode, they are swapping the movies Down Periscope and Just Mercy. So very different, very different. And lastly, go back to TV podcast industries, Derek and John, because they are just the workhorses of the podcast universe, and they never stop. They're also covering The Witcher Season 3, the back half of Season 3 that is running, is on Netflix right now. They've been going back through that episode by episode, week to week.
Yeah,
so
I think it's wrapped up now, too, so.
All right. Cool. So you go check out all of their Witcher coverage over on TV podcast industries. But lastly, I've sent you in all these directions to all these other great podcasts, but we got to bring you back home to Run for Your Lives because we got something great going on next week. What do we got going on?
Okay, so when a pilot accepts a 2-year job to help fund his daughter's treatment, He has no idea that this space expedition is going to change his life forever. We're going to be talking about the 2023 film 65. It stars Adam Driver and Ariana Greenblatt, and is directed by Scott Beck and Brian Woods. Mm-hmm. This was interesting because I had never seen this one, and Pake went to the movie theater to watch it.
Yeah. It's a fun one, for sure. I think it's a really interesting movie, interesting concept, and we hope you check it out. It is on Netflix, streaming right now, so you can go check it out. Let us know your thoughts, and get back to us for next week. We'd love to hear from you.
Absolutely. I'd love to have more feedback like we did this week. Mm-hmm. It was so good. So exciting. Glad that you guys are enjoying what we're doing. And even more glad that you are compelled to send us your thoughts too. Means a lot to us.
Yeah.
And with that, we have reached the end of another fun episode. Thanks everyone for listening. I'm Daphne.
And I'm Pake.
And if you have to run, you better run for your lives.
Bye-bye.